You're listening to the fourth series of Behind the Rhymes, the mountain we all climb, with me, Maja.
And me, Andrew. Too much noise. The butterfly, beautiful, causes the quake. The sound from its wings is lost as the colours shudder and vibrate. The man shouts on speaker's corner somewhere. No one listens. As he clears his throat and begins, the pigeon lands, like a visitor at a funeral, his own personal mourner. The eyes bleed from too many visuals. Content explodes into shrapnel and scene. Words fall from the skin of trees. Quantity, not quality, turned out by and for the machine. And when I have something important to say or want to speak to the page, how can you find me in this modern labyrinthian maze? I can't shout any longer or louder, but I have something to say. I know you're not ignoring me. You can't hear my loud whispers. Don't worry. I know it's overloaded. It's not you I blame.
What lies behind too much noise, Andrew?
This poem is about a few different things. It's about me as a poet, as a writer, as an author, as an artist, whatever description you want to use. Having something to say, having content which I feel is important, and it just being lost in amongst all the other content that's sort of available out there, and some of which is of good quality and some of which is of lesser quality, I would say.
So do you feel unheard and overwhelmed with noise as an author?
I don't think authors compete with each other for space, but for example, does a famous celebrity need to write a book? Aren't they good enough just being the celebrity, or a sports personality, or a former sports personality, whatever reason? Isn't that enough for them? Do they then need to write as well? What about people like me, from jobs like I do, like a nurse, or other kinds of jobs, that this is like a side hobby for us, or an outlet for us. We get lost in that sort of that noise that's created by people with more famous personalities, I would say.
Yes, but on the other hand, now in this era, anyone can publish content. Previously, you had to watch other people's content, which was approved by editors, sometimes approved by governments. Now anyone can broadcast. Do you not feel that sort of is a equalizer if you find your own
It's an equalizer, but look, we've recorded 30 plus episodes of this podcast, and our listenership has waned and risen and waned, and we're not getting a million listens like a famous comedian who has a podcast about poetry. We're getting much lower numbers, and it's so the Great Leveler, absolutely. I can do a podcast. You and I can do a podcast from here. I can write a book. You can write a book. Anybody can write a book about anything, which some of these companies, I think, use to their advantage or take advantage of people. But I don't have the platform to promote this. I can't say now who's listening to this as we speak on this microphone, not a recording studio, on this microphone. We when we've looked into publicizing the books and the podcast, there's lots of help out there, but they all want to take money from you. So, the social media outlets, I won't mention specifically, but if you want to promote through them, you have to pay to promote through them. If you want to publish your book through a well-known online retailer, they also want to take your money as well.
Isn't the joy of creating and doing something you love enough?
So the actual creation and is enough for me. We've had this conversation in the past about money and expectations of money and making money. I've been asked this question more recently, at work. Somebody asked me that question, have you made loads of money? Well, the simple answer is no. So it was never about that, luckily. It was more about being heard rather than sort of being able to retire. Also, I want to share that with other people. So the more people I can share that with, the happier I am, and the more life that work has then outside of where we record this podcast, outside our non-editing suite and our publishing house that's run out of an apartment and all that kind of stuff. I want it to be wider than that. I'm not complaining. But we just, the resources, there's levels, people are trying to exploit you at every kind of level, I would say. Every kind of level. Which is why I mentioned Speaker's Corner, because traditionally that's where people went to speak and have a say on a variety of things, and you can either listen or walk away. I think I wrote that in a poem at one point. From a broadcasting point of view, you worked for the BBC World Service some years ago. You were heard by lots of people.
Yes, I was heard by millions, you could say. People even years after the programs finished would recognize my voice. That was my profession, and I was paid for what I did. Not a huge amount of money. Journalists are quite intelligent, they're very resourceful, so in other professions a journalist can earn much more with the same abilities. Some people enjoy journalism because they like being the center of attention in the media, which is sort of equal to the celebrities that you were talking about. That's why they publish, that's why they constantly create content, especially when they already have an audience. The same goes for actors. They already have access to the media, then they create investments, then they broadcast their lives and so on. So why their lives are more interesting than yours is an eternal question. But when it comes to the way we create this content, I certainly find a high level of satisfaction. I would not be involved in doing a fourth series of this podcast if I didn't enjoy the process of helping you create the books and also hosting this podcast.
But is that to do with the creative control that we have in these projects?
Absolutely, which I didn't have in the BBC. We were effectively restricted from sharing our opinion, and that has happened to much more well-known British broadcasters, like in the case of Lineker, where he was told off for his opinion on how the government approaches the issue of refugees coming to the UK. So as a professional journalist, you are not allowed to express your personal opinion. So here I can, and that freedom costs money. As in, if you want other people to hear it, you need to pay. But I think just the fact that now I can have a platform and you can have a platform and anyone can have a platform is much more liberating than being controlled by a central studio, by a central government. You mentioned that I worked for the BBC World Service. Very few people know that the BBC World Service is actually directly connected with the Foreign Office. So you can then imagine what is the freedom of expression of journalists who work in the BBC World Service. Coming back to your point, to your poem, Too Much Noise, I'd like to ask you, at a time when screens follow us everywhere, when artificial intelligence makes decisions for us, when people binge watch their favorite shows instead of having to wait for them for a week, how do you get a break from everything?
Well, I mean, putting insight into our life, our personal life, we don't, for example, have a TV license. So we don't pay for a TV license and we don't watch live TV. I personally moderate what I want to watch. I watch the things that I want to watch. it's and some of that is old stuff actually. As I've got older, I've gone back to stuff that I have enjoyed in the past. It's very difficult. I mean, this whole poem, Too Much Noise, also relates to the fact there's too much content. So it's very difficult to keep track of content, basically. Things that I may enjoy or may not. It's just, we are totally bombarded. There's so many streaming platforms available at the moment, if we just talk about sort of TV, that it's really hard to keep track of things and watch things. And the way TV used to be, you got one episode a week. Now we're encouraged to binge, and I hate binge watching. I've never liked binge watching ever. Some of these streaming platforms have a formula where they leave an episode on a cliffhanger, so you then sit and watch the next episode because you want to resolve. And then by the time you've sat through 10, 15 minutes, you then figure you might as well sit through the next half an hour, and then on you go. So you can find yourself watching 3 or 4 episodes at once. And I really don't like that. I can at best watch probably 2 episodes of something that's probably 45 minutes long. And it's not due to attention span, but I like to actually process what I've watched and appreciate it. It's otherwise you're just spoon feeding yourself junk food basically. So that's only the medium of TV, for example. I mean, books.
Yes, that's why I mentioned all the screens that follow us effectively. You can watch anything anywhere.
Yeah, now we watch them on our devices. You don't even have to sit at home and watch TV. I would say I watch quite a lot of stuff on my phone, actually. It's that traditional sitting around the TV as a family era, as much as sitting around a table and eating is sort of in the past now. We sit on our own and watch our own things in our own darkened rooms.
Well, you and I don't.
No, but, when we've been in the company of others, my kids, for example, they'll sit and watch what they want to watch. It's a different era, and I'm not moaning as an old man or anything like that, but it's a totally different era now. However, I think there's something to be said about the lost quality that we used to have. Things used to be much more quality. Now there needs to be quantity. So I don't know whether things are necessarily as good as they used to be, whether things are checked as well as they used to be. Because the endless machine needs content. And let's not even talk about AI, for example. At the minute in America, the Writers Guild are on strike, and one of their issues is they think that the AI will replace them. There's this theory that they could these film studios could input the scripts of some great films and tell this computer to write in the style of that person, then pass it on to another human being who will be getting paid a lot less, I suspect, just to take out the inhuman aspects of it. But as that AI gets better and learns, that human element will go. I think that may be the same for poetry and written books as well. I'm horrified by AI in that sense. I love technology, but AI, it really does remove that human element. And it's just another step to laziness. I mean, we're already on this road to laziness and convenience. It's just another step towards laziness, where we're not going to be able to think for ourselves anymore. I'd hate to be up against an AI poet, but maybe at the minute I could win an AI poet. Maybe in 30 years' time, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between an AI-created poem and a human-created poem, if you tell it to recreate the work of a famous poet, for example.
Yeah, okay. I don't think AI will achieve the level of originality in artwork as a human would, because just by definition, if you input other people's work, then you sort of at the end make it an excellent piece of a jumble of all these artworks, but not something totally original.
No, but it just fills the content void. That's the thing.
Yes, absolutely. But, at the end of the day, humans are responsible. If they want to digest that kind of content, if that's what they're served, maybe they will rebel. Maybe they will
maybe
not
switch
want to watch
off,
it.
or maybe
Maybe everyone will create their own podcasts like we do.
possibly all these streaming platforms may just carry on just churning out stuff
Possibly.
in the style of, and at the minute if you churn out something that's reminiscent of something else, you can call it a homage. I don't know what it'll be when an AI generates it.
Or when it becomes a homage of homage.
Yes. Like a copy of a copy becomes inferior,
Yes.
maybe.
Yes. Okay, now that we know what Too Much Noise is about, would you like to read it again for our listeners?
Too much noise. The butterfly, beautiful, causes the quake. The sound from its wings is lost as the colours shudder and vibrate. The man shouts on speaker's corner somewhere. No one listens. As he clears his throat and begins, the pigeon lands, like a visitor at a funeral, his own personal mourner. The eyes bleed from too many visuals. Content explodes into shrapnel and scene. Words fall from the skin of trees. Quantity, not quality, turned out by and for the machine. And when I have something important to say or want to speak to the page, how can you find me in this modern labyrinthian maze? I can't shout any longer or louder, but I have something to say. I know you're not ignoring me. You can't hear my loud whispers. Don't worry. I know it's overloaded. It's not you I blame.
You've been listening to Behind the Rhymes, the mountain we all climb, with me, Maja.
And me, Andrew. You can find all the poems from this series in my new book, Beyond the Bunker, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Write Poetry.
The book is produced by our publishing company, Anarchy. And if you want to order it, contact us at vonperestproductions@outlook.com.
Where you can also contact us about other things, maybe even including a chat about the state of the world.